From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.
Good day. Radio Pilipinas World Service can also be heard on shortwave broadcast through the shortwave facilities of the United States Agency for Global Media or Voice of America on the following shortwave frequencies: 15.640 MHz, 17.750 MHz, and 21.720 MHz. I'm your host, Leo Magpayo, and this is Dateline Malacañang. Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. on Thursday led the inauguration of the Ibato-Iraan Small Reservoir Irrigation Project or SRIP in Aborlan, hailing it as a landmark investment in food security and rural development. The 886.12 million peso facility, Palawan's largest irrigation system and its first reservoir-type project, is designed to provide farmers with a stable year-round water supply. Covering 1,072 hectares across barangays Sagpangan, Iraan, and Isaob, the SRIP is expected to benefit 425 members of the Ibato-Iraan Farmers Irrigators Association Incorporated. Speaking at the turnover ceremony in Barangay Sagpangan, the president underscored the project's role in shielding farmers from erratic weather patterns. The reservoir, fed by the Ibato-Iraan River, features a 31-meter-high zoned earthfill dam, concrete-lined canals, access roads, and a 350-meter-long spillway. It has a storage capacity of 3.013 million cubic meters. President Marcos also highlighted government efforts to modernize agriculture through technology, citing artificial intelligence, satellite monitoring, and solar-powered irrigation pumps to maximize production and manage water resources more efficiently.
Sa pamamagitan nito, magkakaroon ng sapat at maaasahang supply ng tubig sa buong taon para sa mahigit 1,000 ektarya ng lupang sakahan dito sa Aborlan. Nasa mahigit 420 farmer beneficiary ang direktang makikinabang sa proyektong ito. Andito yung ating mga namumuno ng mga association at saka mga cooperative. At kayo ang mag-aalaga dito at kayo ang magpapatakbo para mabigyan natin ang ating mga magsasaka ng sapat na tubig kahit na hindi pa dumadating ang ulan. Inaasahan natin ang mas maraming sako ng bigas, mas masaganang ani sa gulay, mas malaking kita para sa ating mga magsasaka. Higit pa sa mga ito, hatid din ng proyekto ang kapanatagan ng loob, kasiguruhan sa patubig at pag-asa sa mas magandang kinabukasan para sa bawat pamilyang umaasa sa sakahan. Hangad natin na magamit ang reservoir ng pangmatagalan. Layunin din nito gawing mas panatag ang inyong loob sa bawat panahon ng taniman, tag-ulan man o tagtuyot.
That was Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. on Thursday visited two wounded Philippine Navy servicemen at Camp Ricarte Station Hospital in Puerto Princesa, Palawan. The sailors were injured in a violent confrontation with the China Coast Guard near Ayungin Shoal earlier this week. President Marcos personally conferred the Order of Lapu-Lapu and handed each serviceman 100,000 pesos in financial aid, honoring their courage in defending Philippine sovereignty. The president assured them of the government's full support for the Armed Forces of the Philippines or AFP. According to the AFP, the clash began when a China Coast Guard vessel approached dangerously close to the BRP Sierra Madre. Filipino personnel attempted to drive it away, but Chinese forces allegedly struck them with wooden batons, injuring the sailors and damaging their rubber boat. The incident has drawn strong condemnation from Philippine officials. President Marcos summoned Chinese Ambassador Jing Quan to Malacañang, pressing for a reset in Manila-Beijing relations to avoid further confrontations. The Department of National Defense or DND, AFP, and Department of Foreign Affairs have likewise denounced the assault, stressing that violence against Filipino troops performing lawful duties is unacceptable.
Dateline Malacañang.
Also on Thursday, Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. led the distribution of rice assistance to 16,000 beneficiaries in Puerto Princesa City, highlighting the government's revamped Local Government Support Fund or LGSF as a faster, more community-centered delivery system. The rollout, held at the Edward Hagedorn Coliseum, was part of the administration's Bawat Bayan Makikinabang initiative during President Marcos's day-long visit to Palawan. He was joined by Puerto Princesa Mayor Lucilo Bayron, Palawan 2nd District Representative Jose Chavez Alvarez, and 3rd District Representative Gil Acosta Jr. President Marcos said the LGSF has been overhauled to cut red tape and empower local governments to identify beneficiaries and deliver aid directly. Under the program, qualified recipients, including solo parents, senior citizens, and low-income earners, receive 10 kilograms of rice every 2 months. The president stressed that the initiative also supports local farmers as rice distributed is purchased directly from them. As of Wednesday, 1,276 local government units or LGUs nationwide had already accessed financial assistance through the fund. Beyond food aid, the LGSF finances priority local projects. In Palawan, completed works include farm-to-market road rehabilitation in Barangay Tagabinit, road concreting in Barangay Marufinas, and solar electrification in Barangay New Pangangan. President Marcos underscored food security as a central priority of his administration, expressing hope that government efforts will one day eliminate hunger.
Alam niyo po, nung una akong umupo, ay na-interview po ako at doon po sa interview na yon, tinanong sa akin, nung reporter, kanya, ano ba talagang hangarin mo bilang Pangulo? Ako marami akong gustong gawin. Ngunit ang kaisa-isang pinakamalaking bagay ay sana naman ay matulungan natin ang mga kababayan natin na hindi nakakatiyak sa kanilang pagkakain. At sana masabi natin, dumating ang araw na masasabi natin, wala nang gutom na Pilipino. Kaya po, aming ginawa ay sa pagbaba ng pondo ng Local Government Support Fund, sa pagbaba ng pondong yan, ay binigay namin sa ating sa mga local chief executives. At sabi namin, yun lamang ang bahagi ng yung paggamit doon sa LGSF, yung pondo, ay magbigay tayo ng bigas doon sa mga alam natin na kababayan natin na nangangailangan ng tulong para matiyak na may kinakain sila. Meron silang mailagay sa kanilang hapagkainan, maipapakain nila ang sarili nila, ang kanilang mga pamilya. Kaya ito po ang naging programa at nagbibigay po tayo ng sa 10 kilong sako para sa lahat ng mga benepisyaryo At sa pamamagitan ng programang yan, nakakatiyak tayo na lahat ng mga naghihirap ay mabibigyan ng tulong. Kagaya na nabanggit, Mayor Byron, ito po ay ang second tranche na ito. Dahil ito po ay hindi minsanan na programa. Ito po ay gagawin namin 6 na beses sa bawat taon. Bawat 2 buwan, magbibigay po ulit tayo nitong 10 kilo ng bigas, 10 kilo sako ng bigas.
That was Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. on Thursday conducted an aerial inspection of the Malampaya Phase 4 project as part of the administration's push to secure the country's energy future by boosting domestic natural gas output and cutting dependence on imported fuel. The Presidential Communications Office, or PCO, said President Marcos personally assessed operations at the Malampaya gas field, which supplies natural gas to Luzon power plants. The facility is the country's only commercially producing gas field, previously projected to run dry by 2027 without new exploration. The President has ordered the Department of Energy, or DOE, to expand gas exploration nationwide, incentivize investments, review service contracts, and consolidate indigenous gas purchases. Since July 2022, the government has awarded 14 petroleum service contracts covering areas in Cagayan, Pangasinan, Zambales, Palawan, Cebu, Leyte, and the Sulu Sea. Data show imported energy sources made up 52% of the country's supply in 2025, while indigenous sources contributed 48%. Of total natural gas, 55% came from imported liquefied natural gas, or LNG, with Malampaya providing 45%. Phase 4 involves 3 new wells, the Malampaya East 1 or MAE-1, Camago 3, and Bagong Pag-asa 1. MAE-1 and Camago 3 were drilled and tested earlier this year, yielding an estimated 222 billion cubic feet of reserves. A pipeline linking them to the subsea system was completed in June. The DOE targets delivery of new supply from MAE-1 and Camago 3 by the fourth quarter of 2026, while drilling preparations continue for Bagong Pag-asa 1. The reserves are equivalent to 31.46 billion kilowatts of electricity, enough to power 13.11 million households for 1 year, extending Malampaya's productive life to 2034.
Dateline Malacañang.
United States President Donald Trump on Thursday assured President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. that he will raise the Philippines' concerns over the latest South China Sea developments in his upcoming meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping. The commitment came during a phone call between the two leaders, Presidential Communications Office Acting Secretary Dave Gomez confirmed. Gomez said the conversation covered global, economic, and security issues, with Trump pledging to take up Manila's concerns directly with Beijing. The call followed President Marcos's meeting with U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio at Malacañang Palace, where discussions centered on strengthening Philippine-U.S. ties and addressing escalating tensions in the South China Sea. Earlier this week, President Marcos summoned Chinese Ambassador Jing Quan to Malacañang after a violent confrontation at Ayungin Shoal where a China Coast Guard member struck a Philippine Navy sailor with a wooden baton, causing serious injury. Palace Press Officer Claire Castro said the president conveyed to Jing his intent to reset relations with China, stressing the need to end violent encounters in disputed waters.
Dateline Malacañang.
In a related story, Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. is seeking a reset in the Philippines' ties with China, telling Chinese Ambassador Jing Quan he wants confrontations in the West Philippine Sea to stop and for both nations to pursue better engagement. Palace Press Officer Claire Castro on Thursday revealed details of the president's 80-minute meeting with the envoy in Malacañang, held a day after the reported assault by China Coast Guard personnel on Philippine Navy servicemen near Ayungin Shoal. Castro said President Marcos emphasized that incidents of violence must not be repeated and urged a reset in relations toward constructive dialogue. The president summoned Jing following the confrontation that left at least 2 Filipino sailors injured after being struck with wooden batons.
Tumagal ang meeting ng 1 oras at 20 minutos. Yes, at nag-usap sila at ang nais na mangyari dito ng Pangulo ay hindi na maulit ang mga pangyayari at ma-reset sana ang relasyon ng China at ng Pilipinas sa mas magandang pakikipag-ugnayan.
The incident came on the heels of an artificial intelligence or AI-generated video released by Chinese state media, portraying Filipinos as monkeys, a depiction strongly condemned by Philippine officials. Ayungin Shoal, where the BRP Sierra Madre serves as Manila's military outpost, has been a flashpoint in repeated clashes between the Philippines and China. The latest confrontation has prompted fresh diplomatic protests and condemnation from the Department of National Defense, the Armed Forces of the Philippines, and the Department of Foreign Affairs, all denouncing violence against Filipino personnel performing lawful duties.
Dateline Malacañang.
Meanwhile, Defense Secretary Gilberto Chodoro Jr. on Thursday dismissed China's claim that its July 20 actions against Filipino naval personnel at Ayungin Shoal were prompted by alleged construction aboard the BRP Sierra Madre. Chodoro said Chinese maritime forces had no business being in the area, stressing that Beijing's narrative was fabricated. Chinese state media earlier alleged that Filipino troops were conducting construction activities in violation of a provisional agreement. Chodoro rejected the claim, saying the confrontation was manufactured. The clash left 2 Filipino sailors injured after being struck by Chinese Coast Guard personnel with wooden batons. Chodoro said the incident was not an escalation but part of China's broader design to assert control over the Pacific, noting similar aggressive actions against Japan and Taiwan. He emphasized that the Philippines must remain prepared to defend its dignity as an archipelagic nation, with maritime territories far larger than its land mass.
Dateline Malacañang.
In the meantime, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio on Thursday called on China's latest water cannon attack in the Scarborough Shoal disturbing after a Chinese Coast Guard vessel blasted the BRP Datu Dumangsil for more than 2 minutes while it was delivering fuel subsidies to Filipino fishermen. Speaking to reporters after engagements at the Association of Southeast Asian Nations or ASEAN Foreign Ministers meeting in Pasay City, Rubio said sovereignty claims in the region remain a growing challenge. He reiterated Washington's commitment to its treaty allies, freedom of navigation, and respect for territorial rights in the Indo-Pacific. Rubio emphasized that these principles are central to U.S. engagement in the region, particularly through ASEAN, noting he raised the issue in every forum during the summit. The Philippine Coast Guard, or PCG, reported that BRP Dumangsil and another Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources, or BIFAR vessel, were subjected to dangerous maneuvers by the Chinese Coast Guard. No injuries were recorded, and both vessels continued their mission.
Dateline Malacañang.
In other news, Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. is in the final stages of preparing his fifth State of the Nation Address, or SONA, set for delivery at the Batasang Pambansa Complex on July 27th. Palace Press Officer Claire Castro said Thursday the president has been personally writing and reviewing the speech, which is expected to be completed by Sunday. She declined to reveal specific topics, stressing it would be best to hear the address directly on Monday. Castro confirmed the SONA will highlight the administration's accomplishments and outline priorities moving forward, but she did not comment on whether sensitive issues such as flood control anomalies or impeachment proceedings against Vice President Sara Duterte would be included. She emphasized that the president aims to present a comprehensive report to the nation, while Malacañang earlier noted the SONA will be simple yet dignified, without celebrity directors or star-studded performances.
Dateline Malacañang.
Meantime, Malacañang on Thursday said there will be no loyalty check within the Armed Forces of the Philippines, or AFP, despite reports that active soldiers were among those linked to an alleged plot to kill President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. Palace Press Officer Claire Castro stressed the president's confidence in the military remains intact, even as authorities investigate individuals identified in the threat. She said the matter is under the supervision of AFP leadership.
Sa ngayon po kasi ay alam ng Pangulo kung sino ang mga kailangan mapagtiwalaan. Hindi po ngayon nagkakaroon ng loyalty check. Nasa security na po yan at nasa pamumuno na po yan ng kasundaluhan.
Her statement followed National Bureau of Investigation, or NBI Director Melvin Matibag's disclosure that active uniformed personnel were among 20 persons of interest tied to Vice President Sara Duterte's alleged plot against President Marcos. Castro said she had no information on whether the findings had been formally relayed to the president, but confirmed they had reached his security team. She added that while President Marcos's trust in the military stands firm, authorities must identify any individual who may have violated their duties or become involved in threats against the Commander-in-Chief.
Hindi po, wala po naibigay sa aking impormasyon kung ito ay naibigay na impormasyon sa Pangulo. But definitely naibigay ito sa security ng Pangulo. So, ngayon ay nandun pa rin po ang tiwala ng Pangulo sa ating mga kasundaluhan. Kung meron namang mga magiging tiwalag sa kanilang mandato, dapat malaman kung sino ang mga ito para rin sa proteksyon ng Pangulo. Again, inuulit po natin, yung tiwala ng Pangulo ay nandun pa rin po sa ating mga kasundaluhan. Yung mga balak na tumiwalag para proteksyonan, ipaglaban ang interes ng isang tao, laban sa batas, laban sa konstitusyon, dapat tong malaman kung sino-sino.
Was Palace Press Officer Claire Castro.
Dateline Malacañang.
Still on Thursday, Malacañang urged government agencies to investigate alleged threats against President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. made by members of the Duterte family, stressing that the security of the chief executive must be taken seriously. Palace Press Officer Claire Castro said, protecting the president is the obligation of concerned agencies, which must also probe the matter thoroughly. Castro confirmed that President Marcos is aware of the threats and underscored that the issue cannot be treated as a joke. She noted that law enforcement and security agencies are in the best position to assess the situation and take necessary action. She added that if stronger protection is required, it should be provided given the gravity of the threats.
Hindi na ito bago. Noon pa po ito. Noon pa po natin na dinig na binanggit ni Mayor Duterte sa rage. Hindi po ito bago sa Pangulo. O, kung anong reaksyon niya, alam naman po niya na may mga pagbabanta sa buhay niya na galing sa pamilya ng mga Duterte. So, kailangan din po na protektahan ang ating Pangulo at ang pagpoprotekta na ito ay obligasyon po ng mga concerned agencies na dapat mabigyan ng proteksyon ang ating Pangulo at obligasyon din po ng concerned agencies na ito po ay imbestigahan. Hindi po ito binabaliwala dahil buhay ng Pangulo ang nakasalalay dito. Hindi ito dapat gawing joke lang o isipin ng mga concerned agencies na joke lang ito. Buhay po ng Pangulo ang pinag-uusapan dito.
The remarks came after Davao City Mayor Sebastian Baste Duterte declared during a July 19 rally that he only needs one head, referring to President Marcos. Vice President Sara Duterte had earlier made a similar statement in 2024, claiming she had contracted someone to assassinate the president, First Lady Liza Araneta Marcos, and former Speaker Martin Romualdez if she were killed.
Dateline Malacañang.
Malacañang on Thursday said the United States understands the Philippines' position on the International Criminal Court or ICC, even as the Trump administration pushes to dismantle the tribunal. Palace Press Officer Claire Castro clarified that the ICC was not discussed during President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.'s meeting with U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio in Malacañang. Instead, Philippine Ambassador to Washington, Jose Manuel Romualdez, relayed to the palace that he had raised the issue with the U.S. State Department. According to Castro, Romualdez explained that the ICC remains a sensitive matter for the Philippines, citing residual obligations and cooperation with Interpol. U.S. officials, she said, acknowledged and understood the Philippine governance stance.
Actually, nag-start po ang Pangulo sa pakikipag-usap kay Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, ipinagmamalaki ng Pangulo kung gaano kalalim ang relasyon ng Pilipinas at ng US. At napag-usapan, nabanggit ang Paksilika. At hindi po napag-usapan ang patungkol sa ICC. Pero may binanggit po sa atin mismo si Ambassador Babe Romualdez. Gusto niya pong ipaalam sa lahat na siya po ay nakipag-usap sa US State Department patungkol po sa issue ng ICC. Binanggit niya po na ang issue patungkol sa ICC at ng Pilipinas ay isang sensitibong bagay. At binanggit din po niya ang residual obligation ng Pilipinas, pati po ang pakikipag-cooperate sa Interpol. At nung tinanong po natin kay Ambassador kung ano po ang naging reaksyon ng representative ng State Department, ang sabi po ay nauunawaan ang sensitibong bagay na ito sa ating bansa. Alam naman natin kung ano ngayon ang issue ng Pilipinas at ng ICC. May mga kaso na nakapending sa ICC na ang mga akusado or respondents dito ay mga Pilipino, mga dating opisyal, or rather, meron pa palang incumbent. Mga dating Pangulo, si Senator Bato, at mga iba pang co-perpetrators.
Philippines withdrew from the Rome Statute in 2019 under then-President Rodrigo Duterte after the ICC launched a preliminary examination into his administration's anti-drug campaign. Despite the withdrawal, the tribunal ruled it retains jurisdiction over alleged crimes committed while the Philippines was still a state party from November 2011 to March 2019. The ICC is investigating alleged crimes against humanity linked to Duterte's anti-drug operations, both during his time as a Davao City mayor and as president. Duterte was arrested through Interpol in March last year pursuant to an international, or rather ICC warrant, and transferred to The Hague where he faces charges. Former PNP chief and now Senator Ronald Bato de la Rosa has also been named in ICC proceedings and remains in hiding. Malacañang has maintained that while the Philippines is no longer an ICC member, it recognizes certain residual obligations under international law and continues to cooperate with Interpol on requests related to ICC cases.
Dateline Malacañang.
Malacañang on Thursday announced that 22.79 billion pesos in government savings will be redirected to support the administration's Unified Package for Livelihood Industry, Food and Transport or UPLIFT program. Palace Press Officer Claire Castro said the Department of Budget and Management, or DBM, identified the savings under National Budget Circulars 602 and 603, directing agencies to declare available funds for priority programs. She emphasized that uplift interventions will focus on livelihood support, aid for farmers, and assistance to vulnerable sectors, including overseas Filipino workers or OFWs affected by the Middle East crisis. Of the total savings, 12.37 billion pesos has already been released to the Department of Social Welfare and Development, or DSWD, for immediate family assistance. The remaining funds will back programs of the Departments of Migrant Workers, Transportation, and Energy. Castro noted there is no indication yet that a supplemental budget is needed, saying current savings are sufficient to finance crisis response and uplift initiatives.
According to DBM, na itanong po natin yan, ngayon may savings na 22.79 billion na savings. At sa ngayon po, kaya po in-announce itong circulars ay para po ipanawagan doon sa mga agencies na i-identify nila at i-declare kung saan nila maaaring magamit ito. Pero ang priority po dito ay ang uplift at ang kabuhayan po at mga pagtulong sa ating mga magsasaka. Kasama na rin po dito ang pagprotekta sa ating mga pamilyang Pilipino, workers, commuters, at mga OFWs na nakaranas po ng medyo hindi magandang sitwasyon dahil dulot po ng krisis sa Middle East. From the 22.79 billion, dyan na po galing yung nirelease sa DSWD na 12.37 billion pesos para sa assistance sa mga pamilya in need. At muli, ang mga savings na to ay gagamitin po sa uplift interventions para sa DMW, DOTR, mga DOE programs. Ito po ay most probably mas maibibigay doon sa mga apektado dahil sa krisis sa Middle East.
Was Palace Press Officer Claire Castro.
Dateline Malacañang.
And finally, authorities on Thursday urged the public to conserve water as Angat Dam, which supplies 98% of Metro Manila's potable water, has dropped to a critical level, its lowest since 2010. The dam's normal level is 210 meters, but as of 8 Friday morning, it stood at 150.98 meters, already 5 meters below the 2010 record low. National Water Resources Board, or NWRB Executive Director Sevilio David Jr. said the decline is due to reduced rainfall from El Nino. Philippine Atmospheric, Geophysical, and Astronomical Services Administration, or PAGASA, added that rains from Tropical Cyclone Quiapo will not significantly replenish the reservoir. David appealed for responsible water use, stressing every drop counts. He suggested reducing non-essential consumption, such as postponing car washes and using rainwater for toilet flushing. He said public cooperation is vital as the dam's supply relies heavily on rainfall.
Dateline Malacañang.
Before we conclude our program, Radyo Pilipinas World Service of the Presidential Broadcast Service can be heard over the following shortwave frequencies: 15.640 MHz, 17.750 MHz, and 21.720 MHz. Radyo Pilipinas World Service is also live on audio streaming. Just download Evox PBS Receiver on your Google Play Store or the App Store from your Apple phone. You can also visit our Facebook page and YouTube channel. Just type in and search for Radyo Pilipinas World Service. Kindly subscribe, like, and share our posts as well. And that concludes this edition of Dateline Malacañang. For Radyo Pilipinas World Service, this is Leo Magpayo. Good day and mabuhay.
From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.